English translation 417th contact Tuesday, 18th of April, 2006, 22:08 hours.
According to your wish, we come here to the biotope storage place. As Florina told us, our coming is of great importance. What is so urgent that you want to see us too? Your appearance suggests sorrow. Did something happen? But first of all, be greeted, dear friend, and sit down here because it seems that you need the seat.
Be greeted from my side as well, my friend. You are really looking very troubled. What is it that troubles you?
Hello? What is troubling me? I want to tell you right away. But it is a great pleasure for me that you come here so fast, because I need your advice, because I do not know what to do. Well, something very unpleasant has happened to me. Something that on the one hand has come about through conversations with group members, and on the other hand as a continuation of the group discussions on Saturday. The thing is the following. Surely I do not have the crazy idea or opinion that I am faultless, for this is not a human being, but I find the accusations unfair.
This is really more than just unpleasant. In fact, it is frightening and shocking. We did not expect that. It really takes, there is a vehicle approaching. We need to get to our aircraft. Yes, we have already done that. Now it can pass under us.
It is Patrick. He wants to go home. He would have left the house shortly after me.
Yes, I saw it. But back to what you reported. What has happened is really more than just unpleasant. It is extremely frightening and regrettable, as I said before. Something of this kind we neither expected nor anticipated. It seems that things are unexpectedly coming up again, which could endanger a lot of things. And the accusations against you are more than just unjustified, because you never even had the thought that you could be without mistakes. On the contrary, you always pointed out to me and also to Quetzal and my daughter that you are also subject to mistakes. But I have to say that I have never met a person, not even in our country, who is as harsh on himself as you are with regard to his own mistakes. But that must be the case, otherwise you would not be able to fulfill your task.
I see it that way. 2, because the way you have explained everything, there is really the very great danger that after your death, a disintegration of the whole will again appear, if everything is not continued in the proven style as before. So far, through your and the group members' initiative, and the understanding and insertion of the group members, the best successes have been achieved, whereby much more has been achieved than was basically intended, and which has been far exceeded. And the assertion that the whole thing that has been brought up is a generational problem is nonsensical, because in fact and truth, it is a matter of illogicity and stupidity, as well as arrogance of the younger generation, which still lacks the necessary experience, lived experience, and authoritative rationality.
That is correct, because generational problems are of a completely different nature than the matters you are accused of. Such accusations are based on a complete lack of understanding of the facts and on illogicality. In fact, your style of leadership has proved to be very good, for it was and is adapted to the circumstances and has borne and continues to bear good fruit. A different style of leadership would be unacceptable and would lead to what was the case in the first years of construction. This has nothing to do with your person as such, but with the leadership style of the group that we worked out with you, and I must say that you did the main work on this. And if you are accused of always bringing Quetzal and me into the field with our advice, we know that you only do so if you have really talked to us and received any advice or instructions from us. Furthermore, you have the right to talk to your friends and ask for their advice or instructions if you feel it is necessary or you have a need for it. That you would push us forward in order to achieve something is, to say the least, just as much an untruth as the claim that the group members would only talk to you when making decisions and expressing opinions, etc. In fact, each individual group member is very much in control of himself or herself to the extent that they can think and reflect on things for themselves, make their own decisions, and express the whole thing at their own discretion and will, as was aptly expressed by various group members on Saturday when the expressions of opinion of the individual members were addressed. I also have to say that it is untrue that the group members would not live and learn according to the teaching material that was given and exists. Although it was and is always the case that not everything is always understood correctly and therefore sometimes resentment arises when you explain something, give advice or order something urgent, but when everything turns out to be right, which is the rule, then it is recognized, understood, and accepted. And that the group members decide according to their own judgment and not according to your mouth and word. There is enough evidence and proof for this, because time and again it has turned out that decisions were made which were against your own suggestions. But the misunderstanding and resentment arise only because the knowledge for your advice is missing, and the necessary understanding for it does not exist. And this is because the truth is misunderstood from a point of view of illogicity and incomprehension. A contrary view or assertion is petty and untrue and testifies to the fact that there is not the necessary insight and knowledge of the facts, whereby everything is misunderstood and misinterpreted as a result of the self-importance or arrogance of the person complaining about you. We, for our part, have learned a great deal over the years, also with regard to that in which the group members have worked on themselves and personally brought about a great change, so that it can be said with a clear conscience that each individual group member has achieved great things in himself or herself and has changed and developed very positively. However, one should not expect a perfection, because such is not inherent in the creation itself. But what has been achieved by each individual group member in terms of an inner change is also in this respect more than could be expected in principle. So it is an injustice to say otherwise. And what is to be said about raising your voice in certain situations is this. It corresponds to an absolutely illusory opinion that everything can always be expressed in calm language. Because the truth is that sometimes the voice must be raised quite loudly to explain something logically and rationally, and to stimulate the necessary logic and rationality in the other person. On the other hand, however, sometimes a person is also driven to raise his or her voice, and raise his or her voice due to the illogic and incomprehension of others, because the other person counteracts every logical and rational speech and advice, etc., in an illogical, irrational, and thoughtless manner until the nerves of the person giving and explaining advice get out of control and a raising of the voice becomes inevitable. By illogic and irrationality, even the wisest and most rational human can be made to fail, and their nerves and patience get out of control. This is a fact which can only be denied by irrationality, lack of knowledge of psychology, through inexperience and through self-importance, and through the illogicality and ignorance of the fallible ones. This fact, as well as the raising of the voice and the elevation of the voice, etc., is valid throughout the universe, so that the whole thing not only occurs on the earth, but also to a large extent in our Pleiadian community. We too have the same rules as on the earth and everywhere else in the universe, so that we too are assigned to the making of a sound and the raising of the voice, and in a quite massive way, but this never has anything to do with quarreling and strife or with hatred, as is mistakenly thought by many earth humans. The sole purpose of making a noise and raising one's voice even if it is very loud, is always to make one's neighbor think and to encourage logic and rationality, but not to shout down his or her neighbor, to convince him or her, or to assert oneself against him or her. The raising of loud words is a means for the person addressed to reflect on their rationality and their intellect in order to turn to logic and rationality, to recognize facts and truth through them, to put them into practice correctly, and to realize them in action and deed. But if humankind is unable to understand this and to act accordingly, then his or her logic and rationality still stand on weak legs and must still be formed very strongly. As long as humankind possesses a material body, so will he or she be afflicted with these things. Therefore, we too, for supermen only exist in the illusions and fantasies of illusionists and fantasists, and as well as the irrational ones and those who think illogically.
I know that, but that is not what I really want to discuss with you. When I look at the whole thing in relation to the unpleasant incident on Easter Monday, I suddenly find myself standing like a donkey in front of a mountain that he cannot climb because of its steepness. So I stand there completely beaten about the head and crushed, not knowing what to do and what the future should bring for Figu and the mission. Predictions regarding the future of Figu and the mission were only made until the year 2000, as well as the 3 monthly analyses of the individual former fallible core group members, after which you declared that everything had been achieved through the forceful efforts of all group members, and through all that was achieved more than it should have been, had developed so well and so far, that from now on it is no longer necessary to carry out further analyses, nor is it necessary to look into the future of the mission and of Figu, because now everything has progressed so well that the whole future lies in good hands and in the initiative of the members of the group, and no longer needs your help. This was probably a mistake, which is why the incident has made it necessary for me to learn some things about the future, so that I can act accordingly. So I would like to ask you to hold a future review for me and then explain the course of events to me. I would also like to ask for your personal advice, if I may ask you to do so, because I do not know what to do.
In spite of my reflection, I cannot find any words of advice.
That goes for me too. Quetzal and I will consult together, and we will seek advice from some others as well. At present, even I am unable to find advice myself. And what you are asking us for in terms of a vision of the future, I am afraid I have to tell you that this is not at our discretion, because this is the responsibility of the Arahat Athersata level. However, we will make an effort and ask the High Council to convey your request to the higher level. This will take some time, so you will have to wait 2 to 3 weeks for a reply. Until then, I do not think you should be in sorrow and distress, because we will try to find suitable advice to resolve the problem.
Although I think that we can also seek advice from the High Council.
Which might also be possible with the viewers of the time, that is to say, the plain Arahat Athersata.
I would be grateful for any advice, or even a solution to the problem.
Then let us leave it enough for today. Go back and try to put your troubles behind you. We will be in touch as soon as we can and give you some advice. Farewell, my friend. You really do not have an easy time with the Earth humans and with your work for the sake of the mission. For my part, I would not want to be a proclaimer of the truth, because true prophets of truth have never been popular since ancient times, and they are not so today either, as they will not be in the future either. But in contrast to this, all false prophets and cultists and founders of religion are met with joy and faith.
We will consult and strive to bring you the best possible advice, dear friend. Goodbye, and do not let your grief overflow.
Easily said. Thank you both. Thank you, and goodbye.